Thank you so much for letting me talk to you all. And this is kind of like my exit interview because, as you know, the agency closed in September. The nonprofit just closed in February, so it's kind of a bittersweet time for me. But I just want to tell you how much I'm thankful for each one of you all and how you prayed for the agency, prayed for the birth mamas, prayed for, the adoptee families, and helped. You all helped so much, helped this agency, with some, Christmas presents, and but the prayers most of all. And then there were some real back-breaking work, Nancy, who helped me. I'd still be in that storeroom right now because every time I'd open up one of those files, she helped me get everything condensed and ready to go to the Bureau of Vital Statistics, and it was pretty close to 1,000 files. So, and every time I'd open a file, I would have to tell a story about that particular placement. So Nancy heard a lot of stories, and if she hadn't just kind of pushed me, I'd still be up there. It was, difficult, but such a blessing. She helped me. You helped me. Cindy helped me. Marianne actually helped me move birth mom. We had to move her 4 times because she was in a bad relationship, and we'd move her, she'd tell the guy that was abusing her where she lived, we'd move her again. That happened 4 times. 2 of the times, Marianne and I actually were moving the beds and couches and all of that up the stairs. And so, it's just, y'all have just been fabulous. And I remember when I first came in here and I saw Kent's big O smile, and he met me at the door, still meeting me at the door. And it's just been a warm home for me, and I'm so grateful for you all. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my family, and because it all ties together with God's, mercy and His being present even before I was born. My grandmother was Jewish, and her family was from Germany and Poland, and she escaped the Holocaust, her nuclear family, by coming to the States. She migrated to the States when she was very young, and this was before the Holocaust. But many of her family members did die, in Auschwitz. And, I remember whispers about a family that had to go back and pick up remains of twins that had been, in that horrible experience. My grandmother was very quiet about being Jewish. We never told anybody that we were Jewish. She did not like to talk about it because I guess she was afraid. So thank you, Lord, that I'm here. Her line could have ended there. My dad was in World War II. He was in the Air Force, and he was in a plane crash as the co-pilot, and the pilot was killed. Once again, I may not have been part of that lineage if my dad had passed away. My mom was a wonderful musician, but she had she had emotional issues, and those came from a childhood that I didn't even know about was so traumatic until she was in her 70s, and she told me some things that had happened to her. This caused her to be very detached. I believe she had a disassociation, condition where she just could not, she had to do that to be able to survive her childhood. And how that affected me is no, that's me. My mom and it sounds so crazy, but I survived it. I survived my childhood. She would go off and leave me places. She'd leave me at the grocery store. She'd leave me at filling stations. She'd leave me at church events. She just could not really be focused. She was not, yeah, that's my mom and dad, and I was the youngest of three girls. I can remember seeing the car drive off, and I'm coming out of the bathroom at the filling station. I'm going, Mom, not again. I mean, really. And I, got locked in a grocery store because it was, closing hours. But I don't remember ever, I always knew I was loved. I always knew that, that I was in church all the time because my parents, my grandmother, when she and her family came here, they converted to Christianity, and they went to the Seventh-day Adventist Church because they were comfortable with, keeping the Sabbath and the dietary laws, which were, we were very faithful with that. And I was baptized when I was 9. But I didn't understand why. It was just everybody else was doing it. But then when I finally, as an adult, learned what Jesus did for me and why he did that, why he died for me, the Holy Spirit fell on me like a ton of bricks, and my life was changed from then on. And that was in my 20s when I finally understood it. Anyway, so I was not a great student. I was a daydreamer. I loved Grimm's fairy tales. I read those, loved them because it was happily ever after, and there was a Prince Charming, and so I could just daydream about that. And that was a favorite thing that my teachers always said, Charlotte could do better. She daydreams. She looks out the window, So, that I made it through school, made average grades. My parents were kind of like, okay, well, she passed. So, my mom sent me to a boarding school, me and my sister, just older than me, because she just really couldn't deal with teenagers. She had enough problems dealing with us as we were young. And it was the best thing she ever did. It was great for me because I was with a bunch of people that, were believed, because it was a Christian school, believed and were similar to me, and I loved it. And actually, that's where I learned the facts of life, where a baby came from, and, all of that. I had to ask my roommate. My first memory of adoption, my parents had older friends who did not have children, and I overheard them talking, and they said they couldn't have children, and I heard that, and my mom asked one of the lady asked her, well, what did you do today? And she said, well, I was cleaning the grout in the bathroom with a toothbrush. And I thought, oh man, is that all she's got to do? She needs children, I just remember that, and I just felt so sad, and they were so sweet to me. So my mom had brought us in from being outside playing, and we turned on our old TV, and there was this movie, and it was called Blossoms in the Dust. Have you all heard of that? It's the story of Edna Gladney. Yeah, and so I saw that and I went, oh my goodness, that's how they could have kids, And I thought that was, the greatest thing in the world. So that was my first memory. Then my roommate, who told me the facts of life, she got pregnant, and she had to place her baby for adoption with her mom, and it created tremendous conflict in the family, and because who's the mom, and I don't like the way you're doing this, and well, you're not that. It was just like, so that was my second experience with it. When I finished high school, my grandmother had only had a third grade education, and she really wanted me to go to college. I had no plans. I whatever. And she said, if you will go to college, I will pay for it, and you can go to any Adventist college that there is. So guess where I chose? Loma Linda, California. It was the 60s. I mean, where else are you going to go? It was great. I loved it. It was, I excelled. Math was not my thing. I didn't do well in math, so I tried to pick something that was a major that wouldn't have math in it. So that was social sciences, like sociology and psychology. And it was just so interesting to me, I began to understand things better. But at the end of the school year, and I'm going to tell you this story, you're not going to hear the ending of it until, and some of you may have heard this before, but you're not going to hear the ending of it until the end of this presentation. But anyway, I was taking the statistics course, which was the one course I had to take to graduate. And it was so hard. Oh my gosh, it was so hard. And my instructor said, well, if you would like, you can come on Sunday and I will, help you, tutor you, and all of that. So one early Sunday morning, it was my last semester, I'm walking to this man's house, and this car drives up next to me, and it's a very nice-looking, well-groomed man. And we used to hitchhike all the time, but we always did it as a group or couple or something. But this man, oh, sorry, I was a silly girl. He said, he had a camera, he showed it to me, he said, I'd like to take some pictures of you. I'm trying to find some new talent. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to be discovered. I was so that was the thing, that he thought that I was attractive. So I got in the car with him. He took me in Southern California, neighborhoods are built around orange groves. If you've been there, you would recognize that. So he took me into an orange grove that was close to where my tutor was, and took some pictures. And then he said, let's go further into the grove, and I think we can get some even better pictures. And I said, okay. The only thing strange about it was that he would not break eye contact with me. It was, he just focused on me it was almost hypnotic is what I would say. So, he has my arm, but he's not being, rough. He didn't try to hurt me or anything. He was just firmly pulling me along. And he's looking at me like this, and then he turns around real fast, and something, I can't tell you what it is, I can guess, but something cut him across in between his eyes, so deep that blood began to pour into his eyes. And it broke whatever that trance was. And I was like, oh no, this poor guy, has just been, so he's very upset, but he took me and dropped me off, and there were no words or anything. And I spoke to my boyfriend. I said, what do you think about this? This is kind of weird. Should I tell somebody? And he said, what are you going to tell them? You agreed to get in somebody's car and they got cut between their eyes? And he said, no. So I didn't, and I didn't tell anybody else for years and years and years. So I graduated from Loma Linda and went to work for the Department of Protective and Family Services, the welfare department, y'all. And I worked in information evaluation and referral, which is a great place to start because you learn about all the resources, you learn how people can apply for things, and I went into some pretty scary neighborhoods, but one of my coworkers, this man, sat down with me and he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, when you go into these rough neighborhoods, he said, you go in there very self-confident. Do not go in there like you're afraid or insecure, or you will be a target. So you just go in, very self-confident. So I never had any problems. Everything went great. Then I did daycare licensing. It taught me how to do things according to what the state requires records to look like. And I also made up my mind my child, if I ever had one, would never go into daycare centers. It's horrible. Then a job came up and I thought, this sounds interesting. And it was with the Regional Adoption Division in Houston. So I moved to Houston and took that job, and I covered 13 counties. I was in the car all the time. I had a brown Honda Civic. Y'all know what those look like, those little Honda Accord. Look, they're ugly. They are ugly, and you better buy a tow truck because it broke down constantly. So I needed a tow truck to get it. It was awful. But anyway, so that was the hardest job I ever did and ever hoped to do, because the children that I placed were older children. They had been in foster care. They had been moved from place to place to place to place. They'd been told over and over again, this is your forever home. I even told some of the kids that. And I really, in my positive attitude, I've always had a positive attitude, and I would really believe it. And the adoptive families had good hearts. I mean, they really did. They felt that they could love these children, love away their hurt, and heal them with their love. But if you have a 6-year-old child who has had multiple placements, has been abused, has been their heart broken over and over again, you better expect it's going to take at least 6 years for them to trust that where they are going is where they're going to stay. Because they have been told lie after lie after lie. So I did that for 5 years, and finally I said, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. These kids would on purpose do things to disrupt their adoptions because they did not want to hope. And so they'd say, let's just bring it on, let's get this over. I don't want to get attached, so get me out of here. So they would do things specifically like, okay, this child is acting out, will not mind, hurting the dog, sexually active, set fires in the carpet in the living room, dumped all their clothes out the second story. I mean, all kinds of things. So, and then I get a call, come get this kid. I can't deal with this. I'm not another minute. So I said, I'm done. I'm not doing adoptions anymore. I hate this. This is awful. So, the Lord, He's got His own plans, and He had His plan set out for me in the beginning. So I couldn't, I met my husband-to-be, and he had office buildings, and he said, well, looks to me like you can do something in that field. Surely you can find something to do. That's what you know how to do. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he said, well, you can counsel families, maybe do that. So I contacted Baylor College of Medicine. They said, okay, yeah, you can do that. We'll send families to you to counsel. And so I would do that at night, and during the day I would do secretarial for my husband, and I also did some, renovating of different, suites. I learned how to tape and float and pull wires and paint and all of that good stuff. But it was good for me. So They sent me a pregnant girl. Well, the doctors did from Baylor. And I went, oh, okay. I'd been in adoption. I knew the laws were very strict. You have to be really careful or you can get in trouble. And so I contacted my friend who was in child placing licensing, and she said, Charlotte, you're getting too close because there's a law. Many people don't know this, but this law says that if you participate in helping a mom make a decision about her child's life, i.e. adoption, that's considered child placing and you need a license. People do it all the time. Hairdressers place children for, everybody places children, next door neighbors, etc. But I didn't want to do anything wrong, and I said, okay, if I have to have that to be able to continue with my counseling, then I'll get it. So I did the paperwork. It was a new thing. The only agencies out there were Christian Child Help, Methodist Mission, Catholic Charities, Spalding, Lutheran Social Services, Edna Gladney, and Florence Crittenden. That was it. So families, if they weren't one of those religions, they got pushed to the back of the line. They were not able to adopt. So my whole effort was to try to talk to them and help them understand different things that they like. Be more flexible in your paperwork. Don't be so strict about your guidelines. And I would talk to them about the importance of continuing to contact the agency and do everything that they said to do. So, but my license came in. And it said provisional license. I said, what do you mean provisional? How do I get a permanent license? And my licensing rep said, well, you have to place children for adoption. I went, no, I'm not going to place children. I'm not doing that. I already said I wouldn't. And my husband said, you just go right ahead. All you have to do is just maybe one a year. Well, it started right off, and it was one right after the other. I'm at the hospital. I'm holding hands. I'm going through labor and delivery. And I had the families. They were coming in, so it was like a major, shift in my whole thought process. But it was different. These were babies, and it was easier, for the adoptee families to deal with. They would bond with them. And so early on, I'm going to tell you a multiple miracle story. Early on, and this carried me through years because I always was able to dial back to this. And it makes me cry almost every time I think about it or tell it. But this mom came in and she had on like baggy jeans and a baggy shirt, flannel shirt, and no makeup, and her hair was, just looked like she'd washed it and hadn't fixed it or anything. And she was wearing her boyfriend's clothes because she was pregnant and she didn't have any maternity clothes. And she was the most direct person I've ever talked to in my life. She was just straight up in my face and telling me exactly how it was going to be. And I was shocked at the things she was saying to me. She said she was 18, and she said, I've already placed a baby for adoption. I've been through this before with a family member. It didn't work out well. So that's why I'm in with an agency. But there are certain things that I'm going to tell you have to happen. It has to happen. And you will do that if you're going to place this baby. And I said, okay, what is it? And she said, well, I want my baby to be placed in Wales or a country like that. Wales. And they have to live on a farm. They have to have animals. And I said, and what else? And she said, well, they have to have a career in arts. And I went, how are we going to make this so hard? And time went by, and you know, I'm just not getting that many calls from Wales. Surprise, surprise. And my husband said, you do something about this or we're going to have to send her somewhere else. And I'm giving you this amount of time. And he was serious. And I am praying, Lord, please, if you want me to place this baby, you're going to have to answer these prayers. I mean, I am in serious prayer. And I came in one morning and I get a phone call. And this woman said, she said, I am visiting my sister in California, and she knows some families that have worked with you. And do you place in Wales? This is not serious. That's just one thing. I mean, so I checked that off. I went, okay. So, do y'all live in the city or? No, we live on my husband's family's farm that he inherited and has been in the family for years. And I said, great, okay, that's two. Then the third one, I said, okay, do y'all have animals on there? Oh, yes, we've got goats, we've got sheep, dogs, cats, everything. And I said, okay, great. What do y'all do for a living? Well, my husband teaches art history, and I'm a curator at an art museum. I'm telling you, it's right down the line, and I'm not even believing this. I couldn't hardly wait to tell her. And she said, well, she was so nonplussed about it. She said, well, I knew it's going to happen. I said, okay, good. I didn't. But anyway, she said, I knew, you know, because I have laid this out as a fleece, that the Lord is going to, if he wants me to place this baby, he's going to do this. So, you know, a couple of weeks before the baby was born, she called me and she said, you know, I told you I didn't want to name this baby, but she said, I've decided I want my baby, at least part of his name to be Justice. Not Justin, Justice. And you know that's one of Jesus's names. His name is Justice. But I'd never heard a person be called Justice. I'd never heard that. And I said, okay, well, I'll let the family know. I'm sure they'll be happy to do that. She said, also, I want them here when the baby's born. And she said, and she had a C-section, so we knew when it was going to be. And I said, well, isn't that going to put pressure on you where you feel like you have to place this baby because here they've come all the way from Wales. They're sitting here waiting. And are you going to feel like you can't change your mind? And she said, I will change my mind if they're not here. And I said, okay. She said, this baby's not going into foster care. It's going straight to the family, period. I said, okay. So they were willing to come in and wait for her while she had her baby. And the adoptive father and mother came, during this particular time, they did not meet each other. That was not done. She didn't ask for it. They didn't agree to it, none of that. So they were waiting at my office, and I went to pick the baby up and brought the baby to my office. And she, had given me a little present to give to them. So I said, oh man, I almost forgot. She wants you to put this name in, the child's name, Justice. And so I said, is that okay with you all? And they said, the adoptive father starts crying. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, when did she tell you this? And I said, about 2 weeks ago. And he said, 2 weeks ago, I decided that I wanted to have in the name Justice, because my favorite uncle was named Justice, and he had passed away. And I went, whoa. I mean, really? And then I handed him the box, or handed them the box, and it's beautiful. This was a beautiful little boy, and I said, she wanted you all to have this. And so it was a prism. And he said, my mom started me a collection of prisms when I was a baby. And so everything was just, and through the years, I've continued to be friends with her. We would talk, and we would talk about what an incredible story hers was, and how this had all worked out. So, Butch, am I getting close? No? Huh? Oh my goodness. So much else happened. I've got tons of stories, you guys, and they're all like that. Amazing stories. So anyway, I'll tell you one other story quickly, and then the ending to the other story that I started. I placed a little boy with a family that he was let me see, what is it called? He was with Rice University, and he was in the physics department. He looked like the nutty professor. He was wild hair, totally. But they were the sweetest couple ever. And she, he moved there, or they had to move to Japan, and he became a fellow over there. And they had met, at this particular time, they had met the birth family. And the birth family loved them. It was a married couple. They already had a little girl, and they couldn't afford to keep this little boy. They just were struggling so hard. And so they went to Japan, and then the birth family moved to Dallas. The adoptee family came back to Houston to see their relatives, and they went to see Nemo at the theater. And they're sitting in there watching, and this little boy is kind of playing on the seats and everything. And he goes down to the end of the row, and there was a couple sitting there with another baby, and he pats him on the knee, and they look over. That was the birth family. The birth family had come into town also during the holidays to see their family. So they, were able to connect, and it was like, how's that happen, y'all? How does that happen? That's God. God orchestrates every detail in our lives. So
that was his sibling.
Yes, that was his sibling. There's the instinct. There's an instinct there. But so anyway, my nose is running because I'm tearing up here a little bit on some of this. But anyway, excuse me. How's that look, y'all? Does that look good? Anyway, so when I was, it was probably it was early 80s. It was the early 80s, and I was watching the television. The news was on, and it was oh, thank you. So the news was on, and it was big news. Big news. And they had captured a serial killer. And that was the man who had taken me into the woods. So, I felt like that was the angel of the Lord. I felt like that was a sword of the angel of the Lord that cut him between his eyes. And if the Lord has something for you to do in your life, He's going to preserve your family line. And so I began to talk about it later. No, I still wouldn't talk about it. It was so shocking to me that I had just been so close to being one of those girls. He killed 30 girls and then later confessed to another 30 plus. He was a horrible, demonic human, and took their lives. And then my son, I had my son, and I just, I was kind of like, I'd been through so many of these moms that had given their babies up, that it did something to me. I didn't really even have a yearning to be a parent. It was, I can't explain it. It wasn't something, you go through that over and over, grieving with moms and seeing them go through that detachment. It does something to you. But God said, no, you're having a baby, girl. And so I got pregnant at 35, and I'd never been pregnant before. And it changed me in every way. It made me a better person, made me better with my adoptive families, made me better with the birth moms, made me better because I needed to be, everything that had not been a big deal all of a sudden was a big deal. So, I took parenting of my child serious, and he took life serious too, because I worked night and day. He saw me, holidays, he wasn't in school. He'd go with me. I would have to take him to the hospital. I would have to take him to visit birth moms, and he heard these stories, and he is a very serious person, very serious, because he knows what can happen, But as I've thought about this over the years, and I think about the Lord and how good He is, it's not a mistake that my son is a homicide detective, and now has been assigned to cold cases to do investigations on these murders that have not been solved. And that is God. That is God. He preserved me for not only my particular career, but also for my son's. So my fairy tale, is true. There is a Prince Charming. Do we have our Prince Charming up here? The one of the one with him coming in the clouds, because there is a happily ever after. There is. And we know that our Savior is going to come back. He is coming back, and He's coming back soon. And He's going to take us with Him. And that's my Prince Charming, y'all. It's a true story. Those fairy tales are true stories. That's our sweet Jesus. So thank you for letting me share some of my... It's hard to get 45 years into 30 minutes or whatever it was, but...
Your legacy, He's given you 4 grandchildren.
And He has given me 4 grandchildren, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Charlotte, what a great story.
Amen.
Stories.
Stories.
What a wonderful life you've had,
I have.
and you've blessed so many families. So, thank you for your work, and thank you for being part of this fellowship.
Oh, and did you show the pictures of you all
No.
helping me?
Uh-uh.
Butch, he did good. They really, seriously, I could not have done what I did without them driving me, loading up, driving me to Austin, because they wouldn't let me break chain of custody. We had to hand deliver all the files. And Butch and Karen, were right there with me, and
And enjoyed every minute of it.
it was
It was fun, so we had a good time.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna leave y'all with the blessing of the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Till we meet again.